CMON failing. Mythic gone completely under. Chip Theory Games out of business. Awaken Realms is bankrupt. If any one of those things happened, how much money would you be out? Because let's talk about this for a second. I've said this previously on crowdfunding. Oftentimes in the hobby, you find your type. On crowdfunding, even, nonetheless, is very similar. You find a company who you vibe with in terms of their aesthetic, their production, their gameplay, their market offering, right? You've seen people, I buy all the Garfield games. I have those whole sets of trilogies, right? I don't even care about the gameplay. I just know that I'm going to like it and I buy it sight unseen nowadays. Similarly, you see it across the board with all of those 4 companies that I mentioned. You see it on the retail side of things. Your Stonemaier champions, right? You have people that are invested, parasocially sometimes even so, in a company, so much so that they are in for a chunk. Now, unlike those 2 examples I used, where you could still be a very parasocial fan and pick it up all at retail, we're talking about crowdfunding. Crowdfunding. If one of those 4 that I mentioned went out of business right now, and you're a junkie, how screwed would you be? I wanted to run through this because Mythic is the one that everyone is focusing on, right? Mythic is the one that is showing us some of the signs of drowning, right? But at the same time, would anybody be surprised in 2024, raise your hand, if one of another big company all of a sudden said we can't go? What if Roxley, who's now separated a little bit from Dice Throne, but I'll use this example just as a totally facetious made up example, right? What if Marvel said to them, hey, we need an extra $1 million for the IP rights. Something changed in our side of things, and due to the contract you signed, you owe us 100 million. 100 million. Anyway, you owe us an extra $1 million. And Roxy's just like, sorry guys, we're out. Peace out, man. That totally bankrupts us. Now, again, it's totally not going to happen, right? But did anyone expect a Mythic to happen? So let's do this thought exercise. And let's get to the main crux of this matter. Why is this important? Are all of your eggs in one basket? Could you afford for this to happen? I know there are some very unhappy Mythic fans out there right now because they are probably $1,000 in the hole with this half a dozen projects or so that they have because, right? Like I just mentioned. So this is going to illustrate 2 points in this video. 2 main points, take home messages right here. 1, maybe you shouldn't back everything that a company does. I know, right? That's an awful hot take, Chris. The other thing is, do you really need to be spending all of that money during the actual crowdfunding campaign? Because usually what happens, right, is you get the backer kit, you get the pledge manager, you get the game found whatever, right? And you can pay with PayPal in there. You can pay with a credit card. Guess what, people? It's a lot easier to charge back on that than it is from the crowdfunding campaign. Let's go. So spoilers on this, right? I went to each of these individual pages. I said, what don't you have fulfilled so far? If you are not fulfilled, what's the average pledge level during the campaign? And this is the other caveat asterisk we'll put right at the beginning here. This is not accounting for however many hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars probably got thrown at the computer screen through the pledge manager. And that's the downside, right? Like, I can't look at that. But you have to take that with a grain of salt then with these numbers that I'm putting out. So if I tell you the average pledge level for a zombie side was $198, because it was about that, you have to think how many people got extra add-ons during the pledge manager. If you're like me and I sometimes split it up, right? I get the main pledge during the campaign, and then I get 2 or 3 of the add-ons. And, you know, sometimes, especially with the shipping, that's another, we're not even talking about shipping. That alone should scare you as well, because that's also money whoosh. So that's what I took a look at. So these numbers would be the bare minimum. Can you afford to lose anything like this if one of these companies? Now, again, it's not going to happen, folks. It's not going to happen. Peterson Games is going to be fine. Mythic is going to completely have them all fulfilled by like 2029-ish. Give or take a 6 months or so. So let's just start. Awaken Realms right now. Awaken Realms. If you were an Awaken Realms fanboy, if you are an Awaken Realms fanboy, how comfortable would you be feeling right now? Let's start off with ISS Vanguard here as a little side caveat asterisk. ISS Vanguard, in the time of me filming this, has not yet been delivered. As I was just talking about throwing money around in the Pledge Manager, I'm not joking. If you click over on Awaken Realms' profile on GameFound, you get the link to all of their campaign pages. Then you click individual links here. And let me show you this because I can't make this up. At first, I wasn't really sure what to make of this, right? Awaken Realms. You scroll down here, you get past all the other ones, ISS Vanguard. You see 11 million funded by 40,000 people. Okay, right? You go, did it really fund that much? Well, then you actually click view original campaign page. And if you click on this, it says 4.9. So I'm interpreting this, and again, I'm probably wrong on this. $7 million, and $7 million get thrown around in the Pledge Manager? That's insane money, folks. So again, if I said at the beginning that all of these are on the low end, this is incredibly low. Incredibly low. This one is the aberration. I guarantee you no other crowdfunding campaign on this list, hopefully, is literally double the amount during the Pledge Manager. But if somebody equaled it, would anybody be surprised with a few of these other big names we're going to cover? And since I'm already doing screen, let's talk about these ones, right? I included the Awaken Realms Vault story dice down here, but we're talking about Retaliation at the current time of funding, not yet done, Dragon Eclipse, Stalker, Tainted Grail 2.0, and the Great Wall reprint. Again, not including ISS Vanguard. And on this page, you can see where all of the funding levels were at. So essentially all I did was, well, I did the math to say, okay, what does the average pledge level look like for each one of these campaigns, and where does that put us? So for Awaken Realms, Great Wall reprint, the average pledge level was about $170. Tainted Grail 2.0, it was nearly $270 average pledge level. The dice, 88, right? They're the toss it out the window, but we're including it for the purpose of this discussion. Retaliation is currently trending at about $242. Stalker averaged almost $280. Dragon Eclipse was just shy of $200 with $199. Which brings a total amount, if you are average pledging for all of these campaigns. I included dice in here with this. It's going to skew things lower, right? And that brings you at a $207 average per campaign. $207 average campaign. People complain about, they're in too much with Marvel Legendary or Marvel Champions. Well, if you're in for Awaken Realms, I guarantee you're not the average pledge level with all of these. You're probably more on a few of them. Now, maybe you skipped one, but it probably made up for the one you skipped with all the other extra add-ons you got there. That's nearly $1,250 that you could be in on campaigns with that are undelivered at the time of me filming this at bare minimum, because again, none of that includes shipping. If you said $30 per each of those 5, that's another $150 right there. Minus the 88, you're looking at probably $1,300 divided by the 5. So now you're looking a lot higher. And that brings the average more up to like $260, including shipping. If you lost your wallet with $260 in it, would you be worried? Right? Not an inexpensive thing. And so again, are you okay with that much money being tied up for that long? That's what I ask myself every single time I do crowdfunding. That, and will I have this game in a year after I buy it? If the answer isn't yes, maybe we need to rethink our thought process behind all of that. So let's talk about CMON, the other big one, right? And I believe at the time of me filming this, we went through 8 campaigns when I was summing them up. Deceased, which literally just ended, Mordred, Zombicide White Death, Marvel United Season 3, Cthulhu Death May Die Season 2, and then, Season 3, Season 4, 2.0, you know what I'm saying, Dune, and Cyberpunk 2077. Again, pulling it up for you so you can see right here. Not as many backers total as Awaken Realms, and some of the pledge levels in terms of spending total amounts were all over the place too. But a fair number of pledges, even more so, that aren't fulfilled yet at this time. Remember when Kickstarter was like, hey, you can't do more than... Yeah, they don't care. Kickstarter's a joke from that sense. So then for CMON, what are we talking about for the average price levels? Deceased, which just ended, $199 average. Mordred, $117. White Death, literally also $199. Almost the exact same, within $1 of the average pledge level of each other. Marvel United was actually $229, Season 3. And then Dune was 116. So Mordred and Dune, 116, 117. Cyberpunk was a middling 140-ish. And Marvel Zombies blew everything else out of the water with a 311 average. So I'm going to make the argument that maybe less so with Awaken Realms, but more so with CMON. More so with CMON, that people tend to, get their stuff. And I've been guilty of that in the past, right? Thankfully, I've only got 2 on that list. But yeah, right? Again, that Marvel Zombie pledge, 311. Is that because people are Galactus simps? Like, man, come on. I don't blame them, actually. I blame you guys. Blaming the audience in the middle of a video, that's how you get people to subscribe, folks, right there. Tip number 1 from a YouTube content creator. So, does that make you scared now? Oh, sorry, I did forget Cthulhu Death May Die. It's falling in the middle, like the 160s. And so that total average was just a tad under $170. But like I said, even if you're like me and you Marvel United up, all in, how many of those did you all in? Because I'm gonna make the guess here that a lot of people do what I do as well during the Pledge Manager, where they buy some of those extra add-ons or they upgrade to the all-in. And so 170 doesn't sound as bad, but you're also talking nearly $1,400 there, or potentially somewhere along the lines of, almost half that for a zombie side total. Because some people are buying all the zombie sides. Now, some of them are buying them to resell, and that's a whole nother rant topic on a different video. But that's a lot of money to have invested again in one company for stuff that's floating in the nether. Even if you're half that right now, could you feel comfortable? Because I guarantee if you're sitting half that with Mythic right now, and you might be saying, yeah, Chris, you know what? I trust CMON. I would be okay with having $700 sitting out there right now. Yeah. Would you? Would you be comfortable with $700 sitting right now worth of games from Mythic? Because that's the situation you're talking about. If you wouldn't be feeling comfortable if all of a sudden you gave someone $700 for their Hell, Anastair, and whatever else Siege 6 pledges, would you feel completely comfortable that you're going to get your money's worth back anytime soon? Ever? Question mark? Yeah, not so comfortable now, though. The next one up, it was really actually easy. I went over to Chip Theory. Chip Theory actually only has 2 outstanding games. The most recent, Hoplomachus, and then obviously Elder Scrolls. Hoplomachus, $165. I think you saw a lot more returning people than you saw necessarily new people getting in, less all in total by any means. And then Elder Scrolls still raising 4.7 million with 15,000 backers with a very high average, actually. That's a $312 average, which is actually higher than literally everything else not named Marvel on this list. So that is the scary side of IPs. IPs, folks. We're not talking The Witcher, but we're talking, yeah. So that's a lot of money from that aspect. Now let's talk Mythic here for a second. Mythic's 4. Anastair, Monster Apocalypse, Siege 6, and Hell. They have, just including those, not there anything else in there with those 4. You have a total of $670 essentially averaged out that could be sitting if you got the average pledge of each of them. Surprisingly, Monster Apocalypse is actually the highest one with the average pledge of $204, followed by Anastair with $194. Then you have Siege 6 coming in at $144, and Hell actually only averaging $125, surprisingly, even though it raised more than several of the others. And that's very interesting to see. That I would have guessed it would have been more, to be frank with you. But like I said, I just guessed that. I threw that random number out there of $700, right? Would you be willing to give your friend who backed all of these $700 for their 4 average pledges of this, even if they had spent, $800 and they were $850 plus or minus shipping there, and they're willing to take $700? Would you feel like you got the better deal? Would you feel comfortable with making that decision at that point? That's what we're talking about here. Because I guarantee, I know from the comments just on this one alone, I can apply them to the other 2 companies I already talked about in CMON and Awaken Realms and say a lot of overlap between Anastair and Hell and Siege 6. Anastair, Hell, Monster Apocalypse. No judgment, but you just got to realize that. And so is that a healthy thing to do as well from a financial standpoint? Because let's just take the average of any one of these, right? We're talking, nearly somewhere between $150 and $200 average pledge for all of these campaigns, for all of these companies, right? you're talking somewhere in the lines of $1,000 sitting out there. Now we didn't even go into the scariest one of all, because I covered that a couple weeks ago when I talked about Peterson Games and where they were at with all of their projects, and the fact that all of them are in limbo despite being somehow merged and fused with Catalyst Games. And so I'm not even going to recognize the terror that is probably going to eclipse any of the money of any of these other four. But again, going back to the beginning of the video, the two main points of this is, are you putting all your Easter eggs into one basket? Are you putting all your Christmas presents, since it's that time of year, under one tree? And what would happen if that happened? Don't plan on it. Nobody plans on it. It's not like Mythic was like, hey guys, let's just... No, nobody plans on that. Bad stuff happens all the time. Go work in healthcare, Vast majority of the people that come into the hospital, it's not because they did something wrong. It's because bad stuff just happened. Can you afford bad stuff to happen in something like this? I mean, the honest answer is probably yes, you can. And if you would say really, really no to that, you need to think your crowdfunding in general over from the first place. And that also goes to the second one of late pledge. You know what? Most of these campaigns that I mentioned, in some way, shape, or form, might even still be open late pledging at the time of me filming this, or were open for 6 months at least after the campaign ended. So if you weren't comfortable then, guess what? $1. Guess what? 0, and get it in anyway. But just food for thought, because we're throwing around this money, and I don't think you realize sometimes how much it accumulates, not only as a whole, but also with one of these companies individually. And just bad stuff happens, like I said. So, food for thought. A little great lift me up for the day for you. Let me know what you think down below. Stay classy. See you around.